The dramatic moment in a Brooklyn courtroom today. Mexican drug king Joaquin El Chapo Guzman, convicted on all counts.
Details this morning on that daring prison break by one of the world's most notorious drug lords.
Of Joaquin El Chapo Guzman. He's been on the run since Saturday night after escaping through an underground tunnel.
July 19, 2019. El Chapo entered his 75-square-foot cell in Florence, Colorado, bringing a halt to his reign as the most wanted Mexican drug lord in America. This moment not only marked the end of the road for El Chapo, but also the beginning of his life in this miniature version of hell. El Chapo's path to power. Before we uncover the hidden horrors of El Chapo's imprisonment, let's first understand why he ended up here and the mind-blowing prison breaks that made him the most elusive fugitive of the 21st century. Long before he was a prisoner, before the headlines, before the manhunts, El Chapo was just another foot soldier in Mexico's criminal underworld. But he wasn't just anyone. For decades, the name Joaquin El Chapo Guzman has been one that strikes fear, commands respect, and defines an era of blood and power. A notorious drug lord, a ghost slipping through the fingers of law enforcement, and a kingpin whose empire was built on blood, billions, and betrayal, second only to Pablo Escobar. His Sinaloa cartel raked in over $3 billion a year, flooding the streets with cocaine, heroin, and violence. He soon rose through the ranks to become one of the most powerful and feared drug lords in history. But power comes at a cost. When DEA agent Enrique Camarena Salazar was murdered, the Mexican drug underworld was thrown into chaos. El Chapo saw his chance. At a secret cartel summit, he was named leader of the Sinaloa cartel, alongside his right-hand man, Ismael El Mayo Zambada. Then something unthinkable happened. In 1993, the assassination of a Catholic cardinal, mistaken for a rival drug lord, brought a storm of government pressure down on him. The Mexican army hunted him. On June 9, 1993, they were caught, and the world thought it was over. They had no idea what was coming. El Chapo's daring breakouts and final capture. January 19, 2001, El Chapo was locked away in Altiplano Federal Prison, one of the most secure prisons in Mexico. In 2001, he executed a prison escape so bold, so audacious, that it became the stuff of legend. A single corrupt guard, Francisco Javier Camberos Rivera, known as El Chito, helped him slip past layers of security. All these for a price of $2.5 million. It wasn't without risk. At one point, as they approached a security gate, the cart started rolling backward. Inside, El Chapo must have felt a moment of sheer terror. One wrong move, and it was over. But luck was on his side. The cart stopped. The guard wheeled him through the final checkpoint. And just like that, Mexico's most dangerous man vanished into the night. But that was only the beginning. Later reports revealed the truth that El Chapo had the entire prison in his pocket. From low-ranking guards to the prison director himself, everyone had a price, and El Chapo paid it. For 13 years, El Chapo remained a ghost, running his empire from the shadows. By 2014, he was Mexico's most wanted man. A coalition of Mexican and U.S. forces, DEA, U.S. Marshals, and the Mexican Navy made his capture their top priority. Then, on February 22, 2014, his luck ran out. At 6:40 a.m., Mexican authorities, with intelligence from the DEA and U.S. Marshals, stormed a beachfront hotel in Mazatlan. 10 pickup trucks, 65 heavily armed Marines, and a single target, Guzman. Inside room 401, he lay in bed next to his wife. There was nowhere to run, so he was sent back to Altiplano Federal Prison. But El Chapo had one more trick up his sleeve. Authorities beefed up security this time. They watched his every move. They reinforced the walls, doubled the guards, shut down any chance of escape. But none of it mattered because El Chapo was already plotting his next move. 8:52 p.m., July 11, 2015. A prison surveillance camera captures El Chapo in his cell. He walks to the shower, the only blind spot in the room, and again, he vanishes. For 25 minutes, the guards saw nothing. When they finally checked his cell, he was gone. Beneath the floor, a tunnel had been carved, a mile-long underground escape route, complete with lights, ventilation, and a motorcycle on rails. This became an embarrassment to the Mexican government as El Chapo was free again. But even legends have their limits. 6 months later, on January 8, 2016, Mexican authorities tracked him down in Los Mochis, Sinaloa. After a violent gunfight, they got him. This time, there would be no more tunnels, no more bribes, No more escapes. Extradited to the United States, he was sent to ADX Florence, the Alcatraz of the Rockies. This time, it was a life sentence with no parole. This marked the beginning of El Chapo's nightmare. The Fortress of No Return. Inside ADX Florence, Guzman was no longer the untouchable kingpin. His world is a 7 by 12-foot cell with no contact with other inmates, no visitors except his lawyers, and 23 hours a day in isolation. He hasn't felt sunlight in years. Every word, every movement is monitored. But what the world doesn't know is that there's more to this story. Secret measures and hidden restrictions, a level of control so extreme that even the media won't talk about it. Buried deep in the desolate wastelands of Florence, Colorado, this prison is a fortress unlike any other. Built in 1994, ADX Florence was designed for one purpose: to house those who can never be allowed to walk free again. Located 100 miles south of Denver, 40 miles south of Colorado Springs, it stands as America's answer to absolute control. This is where society's worst nightmares are locked away. Serial killers, terrorists, war criminals, drug lords, men so dangerous that even other prisons can't contain them. And within these walls, those inmates are erased from existence. To end up here, a criminal must be one of two things: a relentless killer, so brutal, so violent, so uncontrollable that they are a threat even inside prison, or a national security threat whose freedom could endanger an entire country. Those who meet these terrifying criteria are sentenced to a life of complete isolation. Among ADX Florence's infamous inmates are Ted Kaczynski, the Unabomber, a terrorist who waged a decades-long bombing campaign; Eric Rudolph, the man behind the 1996 Atlanta Olympic Park bombing; and El Chapo, the Mexican drug lord who once ruled the cartel world, but now finds himself completely powerless. His new neighbors are the most ruthless criminals of our time. Men who don't care about money, power, or influence. Men who exist only to cause pain. But why was this prison created in the first place? Back in the 80s, Clayton Fountain was arrested. At the time, the U.S. Penitentiary in Marion was supposed to be the most secure prison in the country. It was where they sent the worst of the worst. But after these two incidents, it became horrifyingly clear some criminals were beyond containment. They needed something stronger, something unbreakable. And so, ADX Florence was formed. The Federal Bureau of Prisons designed this fortress with one goal in mind: absolute control. Every choice, every policy, every inch of its structure exists to crush the human spirit. For even the most hardened criminals, ADX is worse than death because there is no escape. The facility is engineered for total isolation. 500 cells where each inmate is kept completely alone, but never at full capacity. 23-hour-a-day lockdown without human contact. No conversations and no interaction. And heavily reinforced steel doors without windows, but a tiny slit to see the sky. For the most dangerous prisoners, even their 1 hour of freedom is a lie. They step into a concrete pit alone, with nothing but a sliver of sky above them. Just endless days of silence, years of isolation, and a slow, agonizing descent into madness. For El Chapo, this is the end. El Chapo's eternal prison.
This is the most secretive prison in America. No one is allowed inside, and the only pictures we have are from federal lawsuits.
At ADX Florence, only the most carefully vetted staff are allowed inside. Guards are trained to avoid eye contact, ignore conversations, and remain emotionally detached. They do not interact unless absolutely necessary. To eliminate human error, even basic tasks like opening doors are done remotely. Despite having 6 security levels, only 4 are in use. The first is the General Population Unit, the lowest level of security at ADX. In this level, inmates experience a semblance of normalcy: communal meals, limited movement, and the ability to lock themselves in their rooms if they maintain good behavior. Secondly, the Control Unit, a prison within a prison that houses inmates who have committed severe acts of violence, including high-ranking members of deadly prison gangs. Thirdly, the Special Security Unit, totally reserved for terrorists and individuals under special administrative measures. This unit has held some of the most infamous figures in modern history. The fourth level is Range 13, the deepest level of hell, a 4-cell wing designed for those deemed too dangerous for even ADX Florence's extreme conditions. Inmates here experience total, unrelenting isolation. This is the exact level that holds El Chapo. Here, every day is the same. Every movement, every breath is dictated by forces beyond the inmate's control. Inside their tomb-like cells, the furniture is a concrete slab bolted into the structure with a desk, a stool barely large enough to sit on, and a bed topped with nothing but a thin mattress. A single built-in radio and a black and white TV provide inmates with the only window to the outside world, but the programming is tightly controlled. Only educational, religious, or government-approved content are broadcasted. Meanwhile, the windows are nothing more than 4-inch wide slits, positioned at such an angle that inmates cannot see the horizon. Only a bit of sky and the rooftops of other prison buildings.
When was the last time you saw the moon?
The moon? I don't even know.
It ensures that even if a prisoner dreams of escaping, they have no sense of where they are, no orientation, no hope. Even the air itself feels different. The cells are soundproof to the point that inmates cannot hear each other. Shouting is useless. Even tapping in Morse code is futile. No one hears you. No one responds. You are alone. However, the meals are delivered without guards ever having to make eye contact. The food is often mashed, a precaution against inmates turning their meals into weapons. And then there is the bright light controlled remotely by the guards to disrupt inmates' sleep cycles. Darkness never falls inside ADX. The passage of time becomes meaningless as days blur into nights, nights into weeks, weeks into a lifetime of endless solitude. As of December 2024, there were only 340 men inside. Depending on their threat level, inmates are escorted in shackles, handcuffs, or both. For someone like El Chapo, it's always both. They cannot afford to lose sight of him. Not for a single second. Some prisoners try to make use of their outdoor time, exercising, meditating. But in reality, they are trapped inside a featureless pit. To avoid rotting in the prison, El Chapo's lawyers made their move in January 2022. They tried to undo his fate by taking their case to the U.S. Second Circuit Court of Appeals. Their argument was for a jury misconduct. A story surfaced, one that claimed jurors had been exposed to evidence never presented in court. Allegations that a cooperating witness had accused El Chapo of drugging and raping young girls. The defense seized this, turning it into their strongest weapon. They argued the jury had been tainted and that the trial should have ended in a mistrial, but the court didn't buy it. The conviction stood and the prison doors remained locked. This time, El Chapo's legal team needed a new plan, one that didn't rely on the courts. Inside ADX Florence, 2 specific units allow inmates more freedom, but these units are reserved only for prisoners who prove themselves. If El Chapo could earn his way in, he might have a real shot at being transferred out of ADX entirely. And once outside of the nation's most secure prison, he could do what he does best: escape. But there's another path out, a loophole carved from ADX's darkest secret. Even in a place designed to break men, violence still thrives. The walls of ADX have witnessed murders, suicides, and madness. So far, 8 inmates have taken their own lives within these walls. Some say the conditions are too harsh, that even the worst criminals are still human. As for El Chapo, his past ensures that he will never leave ADX Florence. He may have ruled an empire built on blood and fear, but within these walls, he is just another ghost trapped in a nightmare with no end.